Last week, we looked at how humans have executed others throughout history. But what about what we did to them after? How we've buried our fallen has varied due to many reasons, such as superstition, religion, available methods, or other beliefs. But putting them together, there have been some very creative methods. So, here are my top 10 amazing ways we've buried our dead. Number 10. Burial at sea. This type of burial has become increasingly more and more popular throughout the ages. Used mostly for families who served in the military, there has been an interest for non-military families to have their loved ones buried at sea. The Great Coastal Reef is becoming more and more artificial with our deteriorating ecosystem. So, if you choose, you can be cremated and your ashes mixed with concrete to form an artificial reef base for the animals of the sea to thrive in. If that's not your thing, you may be buried in a weighted basket, but only at the depth of 600 feet. Number 9. Mummification. When you hear mummification, you think of Egypt and the great pharaohs of ancient times, right? The Egyptians were very concerned about their deaths and the afterlife, so much they would spend their lives creating and making tombs for their earthly bodies. But when someone died, namely the rich and wealthy, their bodies would be taken and their organs removed and dried out. Canopic jars would then hold their organs and placed by the body. During this time, they did not know that the brain was one of the more important organs of the human body and would simply discard the scrambled organ. After dehydrating the body cavity, it would be dried, stuffed and wrapped in clean linen with various guards against evil. Number 8. Cryonics. Cryogenics is a study of the production and behavior of materials at very low temperatures. Cryonics is when we do it to humans. Often known as cryonics is where the human remains are often preserved at very low temperatures. At our current stage of technology, cryo is non-reversible. But people, and often animals, are preserved in hopes that our technology will advance further enough to reverse the effects. To be put through cryonics, a person or animal must be pronounced dead by legal or medical definitions. They could in fact just be considered brain dead but still living. The theory is that the people who have been cryopreserved might one day pull through when technology advances further. Number 7. Space burial. In the late 20th century, it became very popular and high-end to be buried in space. No, there aren't any caskets just floating around with your dead relative. Instead, a small part of a cremated person is placed in a capsule, no bigger than a tube of lipstick, and is launched into space. However, the ashes are constantly sealed in the container, not becoming space particles. Instead, there are 3 things that may happen. The remains may be launched into space and then fall back to Earth, making it as if the person has travelled to space. It may also remain in orbit for long periods of time, or may land somewhere else, such as the moon. This type of burial is very expensive, and only one place offers such a burial. Number 6. Funeral pyres. Commonly known to be associated with Viking lore and tradition, funeral pyres are no longer common practice. In many places around the world, open cremation is actually illegal. Being burned upon a funeral pyre causes too much carbon dioxide and pollution. But back in Norse times, it was a great honor to be burned with your belongings. Actually, there were 3 different types of burials Vikings used to practice: the funeral pyre, interred, or placed in a shallow grave. The shallow grave is usually used for a slave, and being interred meant being placed in a tomb. Yet no matter what, the person's personal belongings were taken with them for the eventual arrival in Valhalla. In a pyre, the flames can reach a scorching 1400 degrees Celsius. That's way hotter than any enclosed cremation gets to. Number 5. Sky burial. It's not very common practice in most of the world. Tibetan sky burial is an everyday thing. Tibet is a very rocky and mountainous place. Therefore, their ground is too rocky to dig up for a grave, and fuel is in low source to them, which puts out the idea of cremation. So this became a very practical thing. After the ceremony of the dead, the body is hoisted up high where the Ragipas, body breakers, then start to pull the flesh from the bone of the dead for the elements and animals to dispose of. Vultures have now learned to pay close attention to the burial ceremonies and will show up after the bodies have been broken down for them. Number 4. Acclamation. This form of burial is one of the most eco-friendly there is when it comes to burying the dead. During this process, the body is put into a silk bag and placed into a cage frame. The cage is loaded into the resonator, the container, and is filled with lye and water. It is then heated to around 160 degrees Celsius at a high pressure. This keeps the body from boiling and cooking, and instead decomposes the body to a brown-green coloured liquid. The whole process takes only 3 hours. The person's remains are either poured into sanitary sewer system, or some people will even place the remains into a garden. The whole process being highly environmentally healthy. This process uses less energy and produces less carbon dioxide than regular cremation. Number 3. Taxidermy. Taxidermy is usually made for placing hunted trophies on mounts and hanging it on walls. It makes the animal in question to become immortalized by showing everyone what it looked like in life. So it would only be a matter of time before humans want to do this, right? The question to that is, it has already been done. One philosopher by the name of Jeremy Bentham has already taken the step in being immortal. After death, the animal's skin would be taken from the body, tanned and leathered, and placed onto a mold. Its eyes would be placed into a clay socket. Luckily for the taxidermist, they don't have to deal with the organs. Then the person is either placed on display, or the rest of their wishes being carried out. Number 2. Bio-Urn. If you're environmentally conscious, then perhaps this could be your idea of burial when your time comes. This company allows your cremated remains to help support tree growth. On top of this biodegradable urn is where the seed of your choosing is placed in regular soil. Once the roots of the tree start to grow, they will break into the ashes of the deceased and use the ashes for further growth. The idea is that once you die, you will forever be immortalized and become a tree. Also, on a odd yet cool side note, they have biodegradable urns for your pets too. Number 1. Plastination. Perhaps eco-friendly isn't your thing. Instead, you like the idea of being immortal and teaching the people you leave behind. Plastination is the process by which you take all the water and fat from the body and replace it with a certain type of plastic. This allows the body to be touched, doesn't decompose, and probably the most important, won't leave a smell. After the body has been through plastination, it can be moved and molded in whatever way. This technique is mainly used for teaching anatomy and how the body works as a whole. The bodies are placed in an exhibition in a museum for all to travel to and learn about. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this week's list, and if you did, leave a like to let me know. And if you missed last week's list, click here for the top 10 brutal execution methods used in real life. And if you want to see another morbid, death-related top 10, click here for my top 10 haunted cemeteries.